Welcome. I'm Doug Morgan, and you're listening to Uncommon Sense, where we hunt for the truth in the topics you're not supposed to talk about, Christianity and politics. On our last podcast, we took a look back over the year of 2025. The Christian Post came out with their top 10 news stories of the year. And this was their top 10 list. Now, coming in at number 10 was Gateway Church founder Robert Morris being convicted of child sex abuse of Cindy Clemenshire. Number 9, the Catholic school shooting leaves 2 dead and injures several others. But really more significantly, I guess you could say, is that the debate that followed that shooting, that tragedy, and it was about thoughts and prayers, if you'll remember, right? Jen Psaki and others were basically saying, I don't want to hear about your thoughts and prayers. They don't work. Number 8, Pope Francis dies. Yeah, Pope Leo XIV was then elected to replace him. And this was the first time the Catholic Church has elected a pope from the United States. Pope Leo has tried to walk kind of a fine line since being installed, making several conservative statements, but also many liberal ones as well. So we'll just have to kind of keep an eye out on this particular pope. Number 7 was CCM star Michael Tate, the longtime frontman of the Newsboys and a founding member of DC Talk. He faced mounting allegations of sexual misconduct and drug use in 2025. That actually sparked a police investigation, cost his band its record deal, and triggered a broader reckoning within the Christian music industry. Number 6, the Armenia, the country of Armenia, arrests church leaders, but does reach peace deals with Azerbaijan. And so, yeah, it's a kind of good, bad. It was a historic year of sorts for the world's first Christian nation, Armenia, as it signed a peace agreement and a memorandum of understanding amid decades of territorial conflict with neighboring Azerbaijan. So of that first 5, the 10 through 6, not a ton of great news. I mean, there's some in there, but obviously the news stories of the year so far have not been on the positive side for the most part. But I think we're going to see a little bit of a difference in this list. So we go from number 5 now on down to 1. And coming in at number 5 is that the Christian Post hosted an event about artificial intelligence. Now, the story here is going to be a little bit about, the Christian Post's their thing that they put together, talking about AI, but it really is an article about AI in itself. During an October 7th event at Colorado Community University titled AI for Humanity, Navigating Ethics and Morality for a Flourishing Future, which actually it drew more than 1,000 people in person and online. The Christian Post tackled the role Christians ought to play in using burgeoning AI technology for good as it reshapes civilization. I know I've talked to several people that some are very much positive and all in on AI. Others like, I don't want anything to do with that demon seed. So anyway, there is definitely a lot of opinions, and it's very polarizing. Well, Pat Genslinger is an evangelical Christian who formerly served as the CEO of Intel and was one of the keynote speakers at the event, likened the advent of AI to the invention of the printing press more than 5 centuries ago. Gelslinger, who led Intel from 2021 to 2024 and now serves as executive chair and head of technology at the pro-faith technology platform Gloo, that's GLOO. And they argued that technology is neutral. So kind of like what they're talking about, let's say music is a neutral thing. It can be used both ways. And he urged his listeners to harness AI for the kingdom of God in the same way Christians use the printing press technology in a way that unleashed the Protestant Reformation. He said, quote, "It's neither good nor bad," is what Gesslinger said of the new technology. "It's how we shape it, how we use it, how we form it." And we, as the Christian community, we as believers, will we be shaping technology as a force for good? Are we going to show up to be bending the arc of technology for good? Those are good questions that he poses, right? Well, Gesslinger, who helped design a significant Intel microprocessor and played a leading role in developing USB and Wi-Fi technology, expressed optimism that God will use AI technology to fulfill his purposes, just as he used the other great inventions throughout history. Quote, "When Christ was on the earth, the greatest technology was the Roman roads," he said, observing that the Roman Empire's efficient highway system played a pivotal role in promoting the gospel throughout the civilized world at the time. He challenged Christians to embrace AI's potential to eliminate global poverty, educate every child on the planet, and break down language barriers that have existed since the Tower of Babel by reaching the 300 million children living in extreme poverty and teaching them in their native languages. Dr. Richard Land, he's an executive editor of the Christian Post and president emeritus of the Southern Evangelical Seminary in Charlotte, North Carolina. He echoed Gesslinger in his assessment of AI's systemic potential, which he warned could be used for both good and evil. Land said new technology is often double-edged, noting that while the printing press allowed Christians to unearth the teachings of the early church, it also allowed for the resurgence of the pagan Greco-Roman philosophy that led to the Enlightenment, the French Revolution, and ultimately dredged Europe in the blood of the Neopon. The wars of Napoleon. He contrasted the French Revolution with the American Revolution, which he said emphasized Reformation principles. He said, quote, "It's a modern Tower of Babel. We're going to build our way back to heaven," he said, of mankind's common attitude toward his own technological achievements. He also said, and that struggle went on, and it's continuing to go on. And now the next chapter is AI. We must be engaged. Otherwise, we will find it dehumanitizing us, dehumanitizing human beings all across the globe. We will be losing the battle of the machine, the soulless machine, unless all of us stand up and proclaim the unique value of every single human being, because we are created in the image of God, and we are better than machines, Land said. And I would agree. I think that this is definitely an area that the Christian community can't afford to sit on the sidelines for. I mean, when it comes to AI, these definitely are just simply machines, and they do not have a soul. They do not run by any kind of moral code or anything like that. And so for the church to just sit back and say, "Oh, I don't want anything to do with that," kind of reminds me of the public education system when it started to get corrupt, or even politics when it obviously, it can be very corrupt. And the Christian community oftentimes will just sit out and say, "Well, you know what? I don't want anything to do with that." And thus what happens in that void of power well, and the Christian community isn't involved, and so it goes definitely away from what God would have it go. So anyway, we're seeing repercussions from that, and I hope that when it comes to AI and that type of thing, that we as a church have a much more influential time on that technology. Well, number 4 comes in as Trump secures peace deals overseas. This was pretty awesome. President Donald Trump and his administration brokered or advanced several high-profile peace agreements and ceasefires this year. Such efforts focused on long-standing conflicts, but have been met with mixed reports on long-term stability. In late September, Trump unveiled a 20-point comprehensive plan to end the violence in Gaza amid the war that ravaged the region since Hamas attacked Israel on October 7th of 2023. The plan's first phase involved Hamas releasing all living hostages, exchanging Palestinian prisoners, increasing humanitarian aid, and installing temporary governance by the apolitical Palestinian Committee overseen by an international body chaired by Trump. Not all of that to this point has happened. It obviously there's still one body still to come back. Hamas has given a couple different bodies, but they have not been of that hostage, and they haven't given up power really as a governing body there either. We'll see how that goes in 2026. But the plan was endorsed by a resolution of the UN Security Council and initially celebrated as an end to the 2-year war in Gaza. In August, the U.S. also brokered a deal signed at the White House that ended decades of conflict between Azerbaijan and Armenia over Nagorno Karabakh, which is the certain area there. The deal normalized relations and open borders in the South Caucasus area, and while also including bilateral U.S. agreements for trade and energy. We talked a little bit about this the other day. Trump has also worked to end the war between Russia and Ukraine, though a peace deal has yet to be signed. Amid discussions about security guarantees and territorial issues and post-war recovery, Trump said earlier this month that a peace deal is closer than ever following talks between Ukraine and European negotiators in Berlin and Germany. Obviously, Ukraine is having some real heartburn when it comes to some of this because they want to see it end, but they also understand that peace is a tricky thing, and when they gave up their nuclear weapons to the U.S. under the Clinton administration, Bill Clinton, of course, promised them that we would take care of them, and obviously that didn't exactly happen. So they're asking, well, if we come to a peace deal, who says that Russia won't come at us again, right? Other brokered deals or ceasefires this past year included the de-escalating a tense and potentially nuclear conflict between India and Pakistan in May. Those two seem to go at it every now and again. And of course, both of them have nukes. Attempting to settle a border dispute between Cambodia and Thailand in October was one that he also brokered. Signing a peace agreement between the Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda, again, kind of an area that tends to flare up now and again, and attempting a resolution over Nile Dam disputes between Egypt and Ethiopia, which is backed by African Union members. Now, while the administration frames such initiatives as delivering global stability, as Trump receives awards such as the inaugural FIFA Peace Prize, critics have argued that some deals are fragile and leave challenges regarding how they are implemented. In August, he suggested that his work to secure peace in Ukraine could help him reach heaven. This again, kind of a joke. After some evangelicals expressed alarm that he was missing the point of the gospel, Trump told reporters on Air Force One on his way to secure the Gaza peace deal in October that he was, quote, being a little cute. So with his heaven comments, but then questioned if he would get to heaven at all. He like I said, it was a joke, but I think behind it I think that he has some reservations on whether or not he would get there. He has expressed that he is a young Christian, and so we'll see how he grows in that. He said that, quote, I don't think there's anything going to get me into heaven. He said at the time, I think I'm maybe not heaven bound. I may be in heaven right now as we fly in Air Force One. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to make heaven. And again, I think some of his comments too are aimed at irking some of the propaganda media and things like this. But they'll say, see, But anyway, number 3, let's move on there. It has to do with the Supreme Court and the bans on gender transition procedures for minors. The U.S. Supreme Court ruled in a 6-3 case, in the case of U.S. versus Scamarletti, that Tennessee could ban body mutilating surgeries and hormone drugs for trans-identifying minors. Chief Justice John Roberts authored the majority, being joined by Justices Clarence Thomas, Neil Gorsuch, Brett Kavanaugh, and Amy Coney Barrett. Justices Samuel Alito concurred with the decision, and Roberts noted the legitimate medical concerns over gender-affirming care, citing recent developments in the United Kingdom, where the government banned puberty blockers for children except for clinical trials. Quote, this case carries with it, in the weight of fierce scientific and policy debates about the safety, efficacy, and the propriety of medical treatments in an evolving field. The voices of these debates raise sincere concerns. The implications for all are profound. That's what Roberts wrote. Also saying the Equal Protection Clause does not resolve these disagreements, nor does it afford us license to decide them as we see best. Having concluded it does not, we leave questions regarding this policy to the people, their elected representatives, and the democratic process, unquote. Well, Justice Sonia Sotomayor authored the dissenting opinion, shocker, right? Being joined by Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, and in part by Justice Elena Kagan. Again, that's no surprise. Sotomayor said, quote, Tennessee's law expressly classifies on the basis of sex and transgender status. So the Constitution and settled precedent require the court to subject it to immediate scrutiny. The majority contorts logic and present it to say otherwise. Quote, here's another quote. Thus, the majority subjects a law that plainly discriminates on the basis of sex to mere rational basis review. By retreating from meaningful judicial review exactly where it matters most, the court abandons transgender children and their families to political whims. It saddens, I dissent. In sadness, I dissent, she said, I guess. Yeah. So obviously that's a way to construe this in a roundabout way. It is not what is going on here. Obviously, children should not be mutilated for their life because they've been convinced as minors by either their parents or others that they're the wrong sex and God made a mistake with them. So Tennessee saying, hey, we're going to ban that. They are allowed to do it. In fact, conservative groups, among them the Alliance Defending Freedom, celebrated the ruling, noting that the decision opened the door for other states to enact similar laws. Quote, no one has the right to harm a child, said ADF CEO and President Christine Wagner in a statement. Quote, the court's rejection of that request is a monumental victory for children, science, and common sense. States are free to protect children from the greatest medical scandal in generations, and that's exactly what states like Tennessee have done. According to the LGBT advocacy group Movement Advancement Project, 26 states and one territory ban puberty blockers and cosmetic sex change surgeries for gender dysphoric children, while one state, Arizona, bans only the surgeries. Well, number 2 on the list comes in as Trump pressures Nigeria to protect Christians. We've covered this on the podcast a number of times about what the atrocities going on there in Nigeria. And finally, something is being done about it here at the end of 2025 and into 2026. Now, after a decade of advocates and watchdog groups sounding the alarm on violence impacting Christian communities in Nigeria, which has led to thousands killed and millions displaced, the U.S. government is now pressuring the Nigerian government to take action to protect its citizens following years of what critics say have been inadequate responses. President Donald Trump made headlines in late October when he posted on Truth Social that Christians are facing an existential threat in Nigeria and vowed to have the U.S. State Department place the country on the list of countries of particular concerns, a designation that was removed during the first year of the Biden administration in 2021, despite the objections of the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom. So can you imagine seeing all these deaths and all of this massacre and all this torture and things of Christians, and then saying, oh yeah, we're going to take that designation off of that nation? The Biden administration was an absolute wreck. Trump was quoted saying, radical Islamists are responsible for this mass slaughter. When Christians or any other or such group is slaughtered like is happening in Nigeria, 3,100 versus 4,476 worldwide, something must be done. This is what the president said, citing Open Doors data showing that more Christians are killed in Nigeria each year than any other country. Nigerian Christians have long waited for strong words of condemnation from a world leader, as their cries had previously gone unanswered by the American diplomatic community. In the last decade plus, the West African country has suffered the rise of Islamic extremist groups in the northeast and radicalized herders in the middle belt states that have killed tens of thousands and forced millions to flee their homes and farms in recent years. One of the most notable attacks on the Nigerian Christian community in 2025 included the murder of over 200 believers in Benue State in June, with a Catholic charity calling it the single worst atrocity in a region that has become known for communal attacks. In the lead up to the Truth Social announcement, Trump faced mounting pressure from members of the U.S. Congress and Christian rights groups to label Nigeria as CPC under the International Religious Freedom Act, the U.S. top designation for religious freedom violators, which can carry potential diplomatic burdens such as sanctions and things like that. Although human rights activists say that what is happening to Christians in Nigeria, particularly the Middle Belt, meets the standard of genocide, the Nigerian government has pushed back on such claims, saying the violence is not intentionally religious and emanates from decades-old farmer-herder clashes. The government has strongly rejected claims of a genocide, but has also faced allegations that it has not acted adequately to protect its citizens from radical groups. Earlier this month, the U.S. State Department announced that it will restrict visas to Nigerians known to have supported and participated in alleged violations of religious freedom. The U.S. diplomatic pressure on Nigeria may already have prompted Nigerian government action. In late November, amid a series of kidnappings of school children, Nigerian President Bola Tinubu, he ordered the recruitment of 20,000 new police officers on top of the 30,000 new officers previously approved. He also approved the recruitment of forest guards under the Department of State Services and said state-run security outfits would receive federal support. So at least something is being done now, right? It's not all the way there yet, but at least something is being done. So again, a lot of good news going on in 2025, along with some mixed things. And I guess the number one, I think it's, without any doubt, the number one story of 2025, probably number one story, whether it be Christian story or not. It's the Charlie Kirk assassination. The prominent conservative Christian activist and co-founder of the young conservative group Turning Point USA was assassinated on September 10th in Orem, Utah. During Turning Point USA's America Comeback Tour stop at Utah Valley University, the 31-year-old Kirk was shot in the neck and was pronounced dead at a local hospital, leaving behind his wife, Erica Kirk, and two young children, ages 3 and 1. Soon after the murder, authorities arrested 22-year-old Tyler James Robinson, who is suspected of killing Kirk over his conservative Christian views on various issues, especially transgenderism. Robinson was charged in the 4th Judicial District Court of Utah County, Utah, and faces the courts of aggravated murder, felony discharge of a firearm causing serious bodily injury, obstruction of justice, tampering with witness, and violent offense committing in the presence of a minor. The murder of Kirk was denounced by people across the political spectrum, with former President Barack Obama stating shortly after the tragedy that, quote, "this kind of despicable violence has no place in our democracy," unquote. And he also said, "Michelle and I are will be praying for Charlie's family tonight, especially his wife Erica and their two young children." And Republican Utah Governor Spencer Cox said at a press conference that he believed this was a watershed moment, imploring people of all political persuasions to disagree better, which is basically what Charlie Kirk was trying to get people to do, is to talk, and you can disagree with each other, but let's do it in a civil manner. Quote, "This is our moment. Do we escalate or do we find an off-ramp," is what Cox declared. Again, it's a choice. It's a choice, and every one of us gets to make that choice. It is also much bigger than an attack on an individual. It is an attack on all of us. It is an attack on the American experiment. It is an attack on ideals. This cuts to the very foundation of who we are and who we have been and who we could be in better times. 11 days after Kirk was killed, a memorial service was held at the State Farm Stadium in Glendale, Arizona, that was attended by 90,000 to 100,000 people, including President Donald Trump. Kirk's widow spoke during the service, stating that she forgave her husband's murder, drawing a comparison to Jesus forgiving those who crucified him. She says, "I forgive him because it was what Christ did. And it is what Charlie would do," is what she said. "The answer to hate is not hate. The answer we know from the gospel is love. It's always love. love for our enemies, and love for those who persecute us. So, yeah, that was definitely a moving moment in that. And so, I truly do believe that this is a moment that will go down in history, that, the assassination of Charlie Kirk was a true tragedy. But it was one that I think we're going to see good things happen from, because guess what? God takes bad situations and he makes really good things out of them. And I think we're going to see the fruits of that in 2026 and beyond. So that is the year in review, according to the Christian Post. And I would like to hear from you, whether or not you think that there was a Christian news story that was missed, or one, that you think, maybe shouldn't have been on there, whatever. I would love to hear from you on it. Of course, you can always do that at uncommonsensepodcast.com. Thank you very much for listening.
This podcast is a production of Morganite Communications.